Passover. At my house, when I was growing up, I haven't quite finished the process yet, I'm still working on it, but at my house back in Stamford, Connecticut, we celebrated a Passover Seder every single night of Passover. We used to invite our friends, community leaders, teachers, basketball coaches, everyone, because my dad wanted non-Jews especially to be able to share in the joy of Passover and to come to appreciate the lessons of Judaism that everybody can enjoy, especially the celebration of freedom. And so I know the Passover Seder, at least as we celebrated it, pretty well. That's why the other night I rattled off Chad Gadya very quickly, and I can do the same with Who Knows 13 and other such aspects of Passover. All of those things, though, are rather trivial compared to the message and the meaning of Passover. My father, who had a great sense of humor about everything, used to quip when he was there with my mom at the Passover Seder. We would have a Seder every night of Passover. Imagine how much work it is to do one Seder. Now imagine conducting a Seder and doing the work for a Seder for every night of Passover for a full table of people and 5 boys. And my dad used to say to my mom, now remember, Passover means the end of slavery, but don't you get any ideas. And the reason why my mom was able to laugh was because she actually controlled much of the major decisions of the household, including finances and pretty much everything else. My dad had the ability to lead the congregation, and my mom pretty much controlled what happened in the house, which was a good thing, because my mom was a great athlete and really understood how to raise boys. And my dad's parents were from Europe, and they weren't quite as with it, with American customs. So we really have the best of both worlds. My father believed that Passover was a beautiful holiday, not because of what it described thousands of years ago alone, although it's very important to remember, but because of what the Passover Seder and the Passover message means today. Freedom is a never-ending process. We're never completely free. It's not something where the kid was like, hey, I don't need to take current events in school, and the teacher said, why not? She said, well, I took it last year. It's not something like that. It's not like we're free and now we're done. Passover, the beauty of it is that we're constantly trying to free ourselves of bad habits and things that are holding us back for a better future. Now, it's also important to not only discuss how we can improve and become more liberated, but also how the world can. And that's where it gets rather dicey. Many people don't want to be made to feel uncomfortable about hearing about things that are going on that they'd rather not discuss. Unfortunately, I guess for some, my father instructed me that Passover always has to have a message for today. Otherwise, it's not doing justice. And I was sharing some emails with my brother Dan, who's over in Tampa. He goes by Who Danny, and he's a magician. He's a dietitian, and he's also a pretty good social critic on what's going on in the world. And he said, do you know that 2020 adds up to 40, and 40 is where they get the word quarantine. If you speak Spanish or Italian, you'll know that 40 is 40, and in Italian, they came up with this concept of 40 giorno, or 40 days, which they believed was the appropriate amount of time if people on a ship were contaminated with some illness. They would put them in a quarantine, in isolation for 40 days in order to try to remove the illness from them. And so from that we get 40, quarantine, and it's the year 2020, and 2020 is a metaphor for having good vision for the future. And quarantine reminds us of what we're going through right now, and where we're going and what we're heading for. And so Passover is a really great opportunity to look back into the past and to try to plan a better future. We should do that for ourselves, and we should also do that for society. As a rabbi, I frequently share my point of view about where I think our society has gone wrong and where we could do better. Fortunately, in Judaism, I don't have any special authority or any special ability of clairvoyance. I look back and read the Torah, and the Torah reads me and reads everyone else just like everyone else does. And so at Congregation Lador Vador, I am encouraged to share my views and also to hear the views of others. I've made my views quite clear regarding where we're heading for the future and the dangers that lie ahead. I do believe that the plague that we're going through right now is as horrible as it is and as disconcerting as it is really just a harbinger of far worse to come with the plague of climate change. And if we stall and procrastinate in dealing with this, then we're starting to see the results. I am working on an article for the Jewish Journal that I have a time deadline on. So I have a lot of these thoughts in my mind, which I'd be happy to share with you. I'm not really supposed to divulge what's going to be in the articles ahead of time. You won't see it for about maybe 8-9 days, but I thought some of it was kind of interesting. I looked back at the Titanic, which happened 108 years ago, which is the same year as my father was born. And it's a 6 times high, or life. 108 years ago, the Captain Smith believed that the Titanic was unsinkable and that death and destruction was unthinkable for the Titanic. And so he was rather brash, didn't really pay much attention to warning signs. So he went off full of confidence and bravado, and people told him that there were things he should worry about, but he didn't. As they came closer to the iceberg, chunks of ice started floating past the Titanic, and his crew said, "That's dangerous. That's a sign that there are icebergs in the area." And of course, he thought that his ship was impervious to icebergs, and so he just kept going forward. In fact, he even asked his crew to speed up the ship so it could just plow right through whatever came in the way. He also had communications that were available to him with other ships that were somewhat in the area and the outside world. He instructed his crew to shut down those communications. Even though they were warning him of danger ahead, he didn't want to hear about it because he wanted to make sure that his wealthy passengers could communicate with their financial advisors and their people and their families. He didn't want to inconvenience the wealthy by these disconcerting messages that were coming in about possible danger. And so he just didn't bother. He cut off those messages. He also didn't bother mobilizing the lifeboats, tragically. He thought the ship couldn't go down, so he didn't want to scare the passengers, so he just didn't bother utilizing all the lifeboats. And that horrible night, many of the lifeboats were empty. And as the ship was tragically going down, the band was playing music. There's a metaphor about rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. They were actually playing music. And the last song that they played was something to the effect, I forget the exact title, it's Nearer to God Am I. And the people there were hoping for some kind of divine intervention. But what they really needed was a captain who knew what they were doing. Our planet Earth is also a spaceship, kind of like the Titanic. And in those days, they thought technology of the Titanic was unsinkable. They thought nothing could overpower it. And we too have a reliance on technology and think that nothing can defeat us because of our technology. We tend to think, as the Titanic was engaged in smooth sailing and the seas looked fine and the danger ahead was beneath the surface so they couldn't see it, we tend to think that everything's fine. We have trouble imagining something horrible going on. And what we can't see, we often trivialize. My brother Dan also reminded me that when we sing Elijah, we hold up his cup and we ask, did anyone see the wine go down? Unless you have a really good imagination, you can't really see the wine go down. But my brother pointed out to me, but in fact, the wine does go down. It evaporates slightly, imperceptibly, but it goes down. So in some way, perhaps Elijah is visiting. The wine is going down. And the CO2 operates the same way. It's imperceptible. We can't see it right away, but it is happening nevertheless, and it does have great effects. This is just one of the things that we need to worry about. In our life, we have things that are dragging us down, obstacles ahead that we'd rather not look at, and we just kind of like go along and think everything's going to be fine. And usually we wait until it's too late to correct our course. So we're still in Passover now. It's not like if you didn't get it right, you're stuck. We're still moving forward, and we still have a great opportunity to look at our life and to see where are we heading. Try to look ahead. And don't just see the obvious, but try to see things that might not be so obvious to us. Maybe they're obvious to other people, but not to us, and try to see where we should go. Like, for instance, when we have the Zoom technology, I get an opportunity to learn a lot. Usually, I'm up on the bema and I'm speaking, and I never see anything from that. Now, you get instant feedback. You were too long, you were too short, you were too loud, you shouldn't have said this. But also, I get to see myself. I learn a lot, like, gee, I think I need a haircut. Maybe when this is over and I'm able to get out of the house, maybe I'll go for a haircut. I mean, we can learn a lot of things by examining our past and looking to the future. The Zoom technology is just an indication of what we can do and what we can accomplish if we take the time to look at ourselves. I usually choose not to. I don't like to watch myself doing the services because I'm just constantly thinking, oh, why would you say something like that? Or why did you do that? But it's a necessary process, painful as it is, to examine ourselves and to review ourselves and to see, are we acting like Pharaoh or are we acting like Moses? Can we act a little more like Moses, a little less like Pharaoh? Pharaoh is not fair, and sometimes we're not either. So that's really the message of Passover. It's actually an extremely optimistic message. The whole thrust of it is we are free. We live in a free land. We have free will, and we come from a heritage that believes that the human spirit is free to accomplish so much. The holiday is just overwhelmingly positive and joyous. The music is triumphant, and it's a beautiful, beautiful holiday. That's why I was thrilled to celebrate it every single day of Passover with my family. And I'm also very thrilled to be able to share a little bit of Passover with everybody today. I would be very interested in hearing some feedback from everybody else if you would like to share some of your thoughts on Passover 2020. And